Everyone thinks being royal is the ultimate cheat code to life. No bills, no bosses, mansions, private jets, designer clothes, world leaders at your dinner table. It sounds like the kind of life you daydream about while stuck in traffic or sitting in a classroom, bored out of your mind. After all, who wouldn't want to wake up in a palace, wave from a balcony, and have the world at your feet? But here's the uncomfortable truth. Most people wouldn't last a week in their shoes. That fairy tale image you've built in your head, it leaves out the constant pressure, the soul-crushing lack of freedom, and the microscopic scrutiny they deal with every single day. Being royal isn't about luxury, it's about performance. And once you're in the system, there's no way out. From the moment they open their eyes in the morning, royals are on the clock. And not just in the way a CEO or politician might be. Their lives aren't scheduled, they're choreographed. Every handshake, every smile, every word they say in public has been rehearsed, edited, and timed to perfection, because the slightest mistake, that can turn into a scandal overnight, not just in their country, across the entire world. And the craziest part, most of them didn't even choose this life. They were born into it, handed a script, and expected to perform it flawlessly until the day they die. No rewrites, no sick days, no room to grow into who they might have been without the crown. Imagine being told how to dress, where to go, who to marry, and what to say for the rest of your life. Sound glamorous? Or does it sound like prison with velvet curtains? And let's not pretend the cameras turn off when they're at home. Private moments, those don't exist. Casual mistakes, front page news. Paparazzi zoom lenses can catch them mid-blink and make it a headline. Social media will analyze their posture, their tone, even their silence. Suddenly, a simple frown becomes a mental health crisis, or a sideways glance turns into tension in the royal marriage. You don't get to be a person, you're a symbol. And symbols aren't allowed to have bad days. Sure, the palaces are real. The diamonds, the Rolls Royces, the designer wardrobes, they exist, but they're just props. Props for a life that's been scripted and sold to the public like a glossy magazine cover. Behind that cover, the stress, the paranoia, the feeling of being constantly judged by people who don't even know you. So the next time someone says, "I wish I were royal," maybe hold that thought, because once you really understand the pressure, the expectations, the surveillance, and the suffocating weight of tradition, being royal starts to feel less like a dream and more like a lifelong sentence, and we're just getting started. For most people, mornings are personal. You hit snooze a few times, scroll your phone, and maybe sip some coffee in peace. But for royals, the moment their eyes open, they're already behind schedule. There's no time to ease into the day, no lazy mornings in pajamas, no wandering the house barefoot with bedhead. Everything starts early. Why? Because there's a nation waiting. In some cases, an entire empire. Take King Philippe of Belgium. Every Monday, without fail, he meets with the Prime Minister to go over national affairs. And it's not just a friendly coffee chat, it's a high-stakes meeting where real political decisions are discussed and documented. After that, he's handed stacks of official documents that need his signature. Every paper represents some piece of state machinery that cannot move without him. Imagine being the final stamp of approval for hundreds of documents every single day, knowing that one mistake, one missed detail could ripple through government systems. But Philippe isn't alone. Monarchs across the world start their day with similar intensity. Queen Margrethe of Denmark famously begins her day reviewing press briefings and internal reports before even touching breakfast. King Willem-Alexander of the Netherlands often jumps straight into meetings with ministers or charity boards. The titles sound ceremonial, but the job is anything but. What makes it worse is that royals can't show the pressure. You won't see them sigh or complain. They smile through it, wave politely, and make it all seem effortless. That's part of the act. That's what people expect. But behind those polished appearances are people working under immense invisible weight. Even their routines, what time they wake up, who they see first, what task they prioritize, aren't really theirs. Everything is coordinated by private secretaries, government aides, and media advisors. It's not your calendar, it's the monarchy's. And if you're late, if you slip up, that's tomorrow's headline. And remember, all of this happens before they even step outside, before the cameras, before the photo ops, before the carefully worded speeches and diplomatic handshakes. This is just the morning grind, a grind with no wiggle room, no chance to hit reset, no freedom to say, actually, I'm not feeling it today. Think about that for a second. The people we see gliding through ballrooms and waving from balconies start their days in a pressure cooker of meetings, documents, and scrutiny. There's no training for this, no manual, just centuries of expectation and an audience that never looks away. And that's just the start, because once the doors open and the public appearances begin, the real performance starts. The royal job doesn't end with paperwork. In fact, that's the quiet part. Once they step outside the palace doors, it's showtime, and the world is watching. Being royal means performing every single day, whether it's attending charity galas, opening hospitals, or greeting heads of state. Every move they make becomes part of the narrative. And it's not just about showing up, it's about showing up perfectly. Every outfit, handshake, facial expression, and body language cue is studied, scrutinized, and spun into headlines. There's a reason royal fashion is dissected by the press within hours. It's not just clothes, it's coded messaging. A blue dress might signal unity. A missing brooch, fuel for speculation. Their appearance isn't personal, it's political, it's branding, and whether they like it or not, they are the brand. Take Kate Middleton. Her public appearances look effortless, elegant, composed, poised under pressure. But behind that smile is a world of precision. Stylists, media advisors, protocol experts, everything is planned. And still, tabloids will zoom in on the angle of her hand while waving or claim she looked cold for not smiling wide enough. One blink, one frown, one glance, and the public starts constructing a story that may have nothing to do with reality. Prince William once joked that he couldn't even sneeze without someone tweeting about it. And he's not wrong. Royals don't just attend events, they embodied them. They're expected to bring gravitas, warmth, and a sense of national pride to whatever room they enter, but they can't ever be off. No matter how tired, upset, sick, or angry they might feel, they still have to smile, not because they want to, but because the cameras are always there, waiting to catch the moment they break character. And those cameras aren't just from the press. In the age of smartphones, everyone is the press. A private word with a friend in a crowd. Someone might be live streaming it. a harmless joke. Out of context, it becomes a scandal. Royals live under a kind of social surveillance most of us can't imagine. There's no off the record, there's no privacy bubble. You're performing for the world, whether you like it or not. And don't forget the volume. These public appearances aren't rare. Royals can have 4 or 5 engagements in a single day, spread across cities. That's hours of small talk, posing, ribbon cutting, handshaking, and maintaining an expression that says, I'm honored to be here, even if you're running on 2 hours of sleep. It's exhausting, and they don't get to admit that, because if a royal shows weakness, the narrative shifts instantly. Suddenly, you're ungrateful, aloof, or worse, cracking under pressure. So they don't get to have a bad day, not in public, not ever. And once the cameras finally shut off, you might think they get to rest, but rest isn't really part of the job either, because behind the scenes, the workload just keeps coming. Most jobs have an end point. You clock out, shut the laptop, and mentally detach for a while. But if you're royal, there is no off switch. When the cameras stop flashing and the public events wrap up, that's not relaxation time. It's just a shift in the workload. Behind the smiles and speeches, royals are more than ceremonial figureheads. They're embedded in the engine of government, diplomacy, and national identity. And when the public isn't watching, the behind-the-scenes responsibilities start piling up. Let's start with the paperwork. While most people imagine royals lounging in silk robes, sipping champagne in candle-lit palaces, the reality is a desk stacked with briefings, diplomatic correspondence, reports, and letters from citizens that require response. It's not glamorous, but it's constant. Even the King of England is expected to read and respond to red boxes daily, locked government briefcases filled with confidential updates, proposals, and decisions awaiting royal consent. These boxes are delivered every day, including weekends and holidays. And then there's the never-ending cycle of charity work. Royals don't just show up for photo ops. They often serve as patrons or presidents of dozens of organizations. That means reviewing strategic plans, chairing meetings, approving statements, and working with staff to ensure the charity stays visible and effective. Many of these causes are deeply personal: mental health, the environment, childhood education, but the passion doesn't reduce the pressure. These roles come with serious expectations, and the public tracks their involvement like a scoreboard. Now add in global diplomacy. Royals may not be elected, but they often act as unofficial ambassadors. They meet with foreign dignitaries, host state banquets, and maintain delicate relationships with countries around the world. Behind closed doors, they're expected to be sharp, politically neutral, culturally aware, and never controversial. One wrong phrase in a private meeting can trigger headlines across continents. That's a heavy burden, especially for people who can't speak freely in public. Even family life isn't protected from the job. Parenting, marriage, and personal decisions all carry royal implications. A private disagreement with a spouse can turn into a tabloid narrative. Raising children becomes a matter of national debate: where they go to school, how they're dressed, what events they attend. Imagine trying to be a present parent while juggling diplomatic dinners, state paperwork, and international travel, all under public surveillance. And here's the wildest part: royals can't really complain. They're expected to be grateful for their privilege. Any sign of fatigue or frustration is quickly labeled as entitlement. So even when they're drowning in obligations, they smile, nod, and say the right things, because saying the wrong thing or even hinting at stress is seen as weakness. So no, there's no such thing as after hours in the royal world. There are just hours you're not on camera, but still fully on duty. And if you're wondering how they ever recharge or unwind, well, that's where things start to feel even more claustrophobic. You'd think that after a long day of ceremonies, speeches, and state meetings, royals would retreat behind palace walls and finally breathe. You imagine them stretching out in some massive private library, kicking off their shoes, and having a quiet moment of peace. But that's the fantasy. The reality, privacy barely exists, and spontaneity, completely out of the question. Everywhere a royal goes, someone knows. Their routes are planned in advance. Security is notified. Staff is alerted. Even stepping out to grab a coffee isn't a casual decision, it's a calculated operation. We're talking about a full security team, coordinated timing, cleared locations, and sometimes even decoy vehicles. What takes a normal person 5 minutes becomes a 30-person project. And that's not paranoia, it's protocol. Royals have been stalked, harassed, and even physically attacked in the past. Their movements aren't just tracked by fans or the press. They're also followed by people with very different motives. That's why security is so tight. But the downside is obvious: no freedom. Want to go for a walk? You'll need permission, escorts, and a mapped out route. Want to take the kids to a theme park without alerting the media? Good luck. Even private vacations are shadowed by paparazzi with long lenses, drones, and informants. Beaches, ski resorts, remote cabins. It doesn't matter. Someone, somewhere will leak your location. And before you know it, the private getaway becomes a tabloid frenzy. Princess Diana famously described life inside the royal system as being in a cage. She could go days without seeing anyone outside her staff. She couldn't go for a run, couldn't walk her dog without planning, and couldn't even cry in peace without someone reporting it. That feeling that you're constantly being watched, even in your most vulnerable moments, isn't paranoia when it's true. And it's not just the press. Even inside the palace, privacy is limited. Staff come and go. Security cameras monitor entrances and corridors. Conversations are overheard. Phone calls are tracked. You're surrounded by people, yet strangely isolated. Never fully alone, but never truly yourself either. The strangest part. Royals have to pretend like they do have privacy. They have to smile for the cameras, wave at fans, and act like they're just like everyone else, relatable, grounded, modern royals. But the truth is, their lives are heavily curated, every interaction filtered through the lens of duty and control. Even something as simple as what they wear at home isn't free from judgment. Photos have surfaced of royals in casual clothes, and people lose their minds. She looks tired. He's gained weight. Why does she look sad? When you're royal, comfort becomes a headline. Sweatpants become a statement, and silence becomes suspicious. It's not just fame, it's surveillance disguised as admiration. And when you combine that lack of privacy with constant pressure and zero freedom to act on impulse, something starts to happen inside. You start losing your sense of identity, and for some royals, that's when things begin to unravel. It's easy to envy the royal life from a distance, but once you peel back the layers of tradition, protocol, and public pressure, something more disturbing begins to reveal itself, something deeper than the lack of freedom or privacy. It's the slow, quiet erosion of identity. Imagine living your entire life as a performance. From the moment you can walk and talk, you're being trained, coached on posture, etiquette, and the art of appearing regal. Your emotions aren't yours to express freely. Your opinions must stay locked behind a diplomatic smile. Even your facial expressions are choreographed for acceptability. Over time, that constant filtering takes a toll, not just on your schedule, but on your soul. This isn't just stressful, it's psychologically crushing. When Meghan Markle married into the British royal family, the public was dazzled by the fairy tale, but behind the scenes, she was drowning. In a now famous interview, she revealed that she was struggling to even cope with daily life under the royal spotlight. "I just didn't want to be alive anymore," she said, a chilling admission from someone the world assumed was living a dream. And Meghan wasn't the first. Princess Diana battled her own inner demons behind palace walls. She faced eating disorders, loneliness, and a crippling sense of being trapped. To the world, she was a fashion icon, the people's princess. But behind the curtain, she felt invisible, suffocated by the weight of public expectation, and ignored by the institution she was supposed to represent. She once said, "You have so much pain inside yourself that you try and hurt yourself on the outside because you want help, but it's the wrong help you're asking for." That feeling of being surrounded yet profoundly alone is surprisingly common in royal circles. Think about it. You're not allowed to talk about your pain. You can't vent publicly, therapy question mark. That's seen as weak or scandalous in some royal households. So instead of expressing vulnerability, you keep up appearances. You smile, you wave, you go through the motions, and each day you disappear a little more. Prince Harry has spoken openly about the mental toll of royal life, how he repressed his emotions for decades after his mother's death, how he felt constantly judged by the public, and how escaping the system was the only way he could protect his family and his sanity. And when he finally stepped away from royal duties, he was branded a traitor, selfish, ungrateful. That's the catch-22. If you stay, you suffer in silence. If you leave, you're vilified. It's not just the rules that hurt, it's the isolation. Royals are surrounded by staff, security, advisors, and yet they can't trust most of them. Relationships are often strategic, conversations are monitored, even friendships outside the royal bubble are seen as liabilities, so they build walls, and behind those walls, mental health quietly deteriorates. Because when you're expected to be perfect all the time, the real you slowly disappears. And for some, disappearing starts to feel like the only way out. Most of us get to choose who we become. You can wake up one day and change your job, move to another city, reinvent yourself completely. But for royals, that choice doesn't exist. From the moment they're born, their identity is decided, their future is mapped out, their title is waiting like a crown forged in iron, shiny on the outside, but heavy in ways most people will never understand. For royal children, the pressure starts early. Before they can even form full sentences, they're being introduced to the media. Their first steps captured and analyzed, their outfits critiqued, their expressions interpreted. At an age when most kids are learning how to draw stick figures, royal kids are learning how to sit still at state dinners and smile at strangers in suits, and it doesn't get easier. As they grow, expectations only multiply. Where most teenagers are figuring out who they are, royal teens are figuring out how to survive under the microscope. They're taught what they can and can't say, what kind of people they can associate with, and what behavior is appropriate for someone of their rank. Every interest, every decision, every possible relationship, they're all filtered through the lens of public image and palace protocol. Even their romantic lives aren't truly their own. Who they date becomes a matter of national curiosity. Who they marry becomes a matter of political and cultural scrutiny. There's pressure to pick someone suitable, not just in personality, but in bloodline, background, and media perception. One wrong relationship can cause a full-blown public crisis. Just ask Prince Charles and Princess Diana, whose marriage was more about duty and optics than compatibility, and whose collapse was watched by the entire planet in slow motion. And if you do somehow fall in love outside the script, good luck keeping it private. Paparazzi will dig, insiders will leak, the pressure will mount until the relationship either breaks or bends completely into the royal mold. But what if you don't want any of it? What if you wake up one day and decide you don't want to live your life shaking hands, waving from balconies, or pretending to be someone you're not? Well, in theory, you can step away. But history shows that leaving the royal system is never clean. Look at Prince Andrew. After a series of public scandals, he was stripped of royal duties and titles, not for personal clarity, but out of necessity. Then there's Prince Harry and Meghan Markle, who stepped back from royal life and were met with outrage, criticism, and exile-like treatment from parts of the institution and public alike. Leaving the royal family doesn't just mean giving up luxury. It means losing protection, funding, status, and often connection with your own relatives. It's not a resignation, it's a quiet war. And for some, it's a choice between peace of mind and the entire legacy they were born into. So when people say they're lucky, they were born into royalty, they're only seeing the gold on the surface, they're not seeing the handcuffs underneath. On the outside, it still looks like a dream. The palaces, the limousines, the designer clothes, first class everything, and an entire nation bowing in respect. It's easy to believe that being royal is the ultimate reward. Status without struggle, power without pressure. But now you've seen the other side, and it's darker than most people realize. Being royal means sacrificing freedom from the moment you're born. It means waking up to schedules you didn't create, smiling through conversations you didn't choose, and performing for an audience that never looks away. It means being told how to speak, how to dress, how to stand, even how to grieve. Your emotions aren't just yours, they're a matter of public discussion. Your image isn't personal, it's a carefully managed product. You don't get to have a bad day, you don't get to say no. And when things get overwhelming, you can't run from the cameras or take a break without risking your entire reputation. You live in luxury, but you serve it. You're surrounded by people, but still alone. You're loved by millions, but known by almost no one. And what's most tragic, you can't just walk away, because for royals, life isn't just lived, it's inherited. You don't choose your destiny, it chooses you. And escaping it means giving up everything you've ever known, your home, your titles, your family, your identity. It's like leaving a gilded cage only to realize the outside world doesn't know what to do with you anymore, and maybe neither do you. Prince Harry once described life as a royal as being a mix between the Truman Show and a zoo. That says everything. Because behind the glamour and tradition lies a system built on control, a system that feeds on perfection, suppresses authenticity, and punishes anyone who steps out of line. Sure, the average person deals with stress, everyone has responsibilities, but very few people are expected to be flawless every day of their lives while carrying the weight of national symbolism on their shoulders. And when your worst moment becomes the world's top headline, how do you even recover from that? So no, it's not just banquets and jewels. It's not just waving from balconies and riding in golden carriages. It's pressure without pause, fame without freedom, power without personal choice. And the irony, the same world that idolizes royals is often the first to tear them apart. So the next time someone says, I wish I were a prince, or I'd give anything to be a queen, ask them this: would you trade your freedom for a lifetime of performance? Would you give up your voice, your privacy, your future, just to wear the crown? Because for many born into royalty, the dream people fantasize about is actually a life they spend years trying to escape. And once you've seen the truth behind the crown, it's not hard to understand why.